Hello and welcome again to another session of the Global Entrepreneurship Congress. The session this morning is powered by Export Bahrain, which I think we'll be hearing a lot about today and having an interesting discussion. We have with us a number of panelists from Bahrain and from outside. Today's session is Scaling Through Internationalization. So with us today is from Startup Genome, Dane Strangler, and from ITC, the Director of Country Programs, Mr. Ashish Gorde. We have two entrepreneurs from the Kingdom of Bahrain, Sheikh Rashid Al Khalifa from Peninsula Farms and Ms. Loma Al Jishi, Illimium Composites. And of course, the new setup, Export Bahrain, Mr. Mohammed Ahmadi, the newly appointed director. We'd like to start our session this morning with a couple of slides from Dane. And he'll be sharing with us his insight and some data that they have compiled together about the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Bahrain and scaling in the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Thanks, Hala. Hi, everyone. My name is Dane Strangler. I work for Startup Genome. I'm also a senior advisor to GEN, to the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And specific to this session, I wanted to talk about some of Startup Genome's findings, some of our assessment about the startup ecosystem in Bahrain. And what we do, Startup Genome, we have a global network of cities, of regions, of countries that join us, that join our network as members, and we do data collection, assessment, and action plans with our members. So Bahrain, through Tamkeen, is a member, has joined us as a member. For the GEC specifically, we printed some copies, some preliminary copies of our global report. That's what, I think there's some in the back of the room, but you can see in here, Bahrain, like all of our members, has its own page, its own profile, and part of the point of this report is to tell the rest of the world why you should be paying attention to Bahrain, why you should be paying attention to Santo Domingo, why you should move your startup there, why you should invest, why you should start a company there. And then in addition to this report, we also do a private ecosystem assessment. And we deliver that, in this case, to Tamkeen, so it's a lot more detailed than that. And then hopefully work with Tamkeen, the EDB, the SME Development Board on what does this assessment mean, and how can Tamkeen and others take action to keep increasing the growth of the startup ecosystem in Bahrain. And one of those, do I need to click this forward? Thank you. One of those aspects that we measure is relevant to this session, which is going global. So reaching those global markets. That has a couple of different dimensions that I'll talk about. So in our model, we measure what we call global connectedness and global market reach. To what extent your startups are selling, not just outside the country, but outside the region. To what extent are they selling to the US market, to the Asian market, to the Latin American market? And the reason that that's important is in our model, we have ecosystems developed through what we call the ecosystem life cycle. There are these different phases. And is this on a delay or am I? Oh, thank you. So the triggers that push an ecosystem through that development are these large successes. So they might be exits. On this model, we have them as exits. They might be large scale-ups that don't exit. They just stay. They stay in Bahrain. They stay in the region, and they grow to a large size. But it's those fast-growing companies, those scale-ups, those exits, those high-growth firms, those gazelles, however you want to describe them, that are the ones that really push an ecosystem. Because those are the ones that create attention. So they're drawing more attention to Bahrain. They're creating a lot of economic wealth and value. They're creating a lot of jobs. In most every single country around the world, it's your scale-ups that are creating, a small share of firms is creating most of your net new jobs in any given year. So these are really important companies. The other important thing about scale-ups is that they're creating your future entrepreneurs, your future founders. because the founders of those scale-ups and also people who worked at those companies and have this experience in a fast-growing company are going to be your next generation of startup founders, of scale-up founders. So these companies, they're a tiny percentage, but they play a really important role in the ecosystem. And one of the most important mechanisms behind the production of those high-growth firms, of those scale-ups, is exactly what we're talking about today, which is going global. And I put up here a couple of charts. And on the top left, this is based on years of research at Startup Genome showing that the firms in your ecosystem that sell to those global markets grow twice as fast in revenues as ones that sell mostly domestic. Now, that makes sense in an ecosystem with a small domestic market, but this is true across all sizes. This is true in the US, it's true in Europe, it's true in Asia. You want your firms going global, you want them exporting. And the element that drives the global market reach is what we call global connectedness. How connected are your founders to other founders in other ecosystems? And the reason that's important, yes, they make relationships, they meet potential customers in other places, but the number one reason that global connectedness is important is because it's exposing your founders, or founders anywhere, to the global innovation frontier, what other startups are working on, what problems need to be solved outside the country, outside the region. So it's raising their ambition, it's raising their sights, it's raising their horizon, and it's making your founders realize, I can do that, I can solve that problem. What I have, I can solve that global problem that a lot of people need to solve. Or they realize, what I'm working on is actually not scalable, it's not ready, it's not solvable for a global market, and they change or they pivot. So that global connectedness, the way that happens is through connections between founders across ecosystems. And we've tested this all which ways, and so there's a very strong association between that global connectedness and the global market reach of your startups. And the way to build, let me talk about Bahrain. Bahrain is incredibly well positioned to improve global connectedness and improve global market reach. And in our assessment, so this is from the private ecosystem assessment that we delivered to Tamkeen, you can see Bahrain is a very globally oriented ecosystem. And for those of you who are from Bahrain, who live here, I'm probably telling you something you already know. Bahrain attracts a huge number of entrepreneurs, not just people, but a huge number of entrepreneurs from other countries. So in our survey, that chart on the left is showing that actually, I think it's the highest ecosystem in the world. About 1/3 of your founders came here from somewhere else and have started companies or got involved in the ecosystem. And just at a general population level, again, telling those of you from Bahrain something you already know, it's a high share of immigrants. And it's true across the world that immigrants are more likely to start companies than non-immigrants. It's true in almost every single country. So Bahrain is already very globally oriented, both in the entrepreneurial population and also in the government, and things like what Export Bahrain is doing. So the question for Bahrain and other countries too, is how can Bahrain translate that strong global orientation to high global market reach? Because the global connectedness level in Bahrain has room for growth. There's a lot of room to improve that connectedness, to build on the high population of entrepreneurs from elsewhere, and to build those connections elsewhere that is then going to help support the efforts that are already underway at Export Bahrain. So we've talked to a lot of people in the ecosystem, and Export Bahrain, it's still fairly new, but it's very aggressive, putting a lot of resources into credit insurance and loan guarantees, very effective mechanisms. But building this global connectedness is going to be what supports those efforts from the bottom and really builds the groundwork that is going to make those efforts even more effective, thus heightening that global market reach that Export Bahrain and others are reaching for. Thank you.
Thank you, Dane. I think that was a very interesting insight. We'll open a chance for Q&As after we've heard from the other speakers. geographically and historically, Bahrain is known for its trade network, being a stepping stone, being geographically positioned for trade across the world. So we've always had an export setup, but most recently, Export Bahrain came into being with a new look and a new let's say, a new attire. With us is Mohammed Ahmadi, who's the new director of Export Bahrain. He'll share with us some new announcements and also what Export Bahrain is supposed to help us in.
Thank you, Hala. Thank you, Dane, for explaining the landscape and the position of Bahrain, to be honest. We're aligned with Bahrain's Economic Vision 2030. Export Bahrain has been launched as the first national export development initiative in the Kingdom of Bahrain that aims to support SME exports. We've launched Export Bahrain 5 months ago, trying to translate immediately all the challenges that SME are facing. Like, for example, one of the immediate challenges is access to finance and capital. So we partnered with two banks, and the number is growing, enlarging the network and making the SMEs more bankable. At the same time, we launched as well the credit insurance in partnership with Daman, guaranteeing the deals for the exporters on the region, and also trying to figure out all the challenges that they currently face in terms of being more bankable, let's say. Export Bahrain strives to deliver high quality, relevant and impactful export solutions to improve SME accessibility to foreign markets, which is the ultimate objective of Export Bahrain. We work with a variety of local and international partners to provide exporters with promising opportunities, international trade, and actively reduce barriers to access world markets. We are actually working with the support of the SME board. We're actually chaired by His Excellency the Minister of Commerce, Mr. Zaid Zayani, as well as EDB, Temkeen, and Bahrain Development Bank. It's all focusing on the SMEs and trying to make SMEs stronger and contributing to the local GDP. Export Bahrain aims to promote Bahrain exports to support the Kingdom position as a global trading partner by providing value-add services for the development of the export industry. Today, actually, we launched, if you noticed, a partnership with Gulf Air. It's a short-term solution, giving SME a special discount for the air freight through the cargo unit of Gulf Air, with a dedicated, allocated space just for them, to give them an advantage to push their products outside Bahrain. Also, one of the important and strategic partners for Bahrain exports is ITC, International Trade. We're having Mr. Ashish with us, actually, and we will also launch tomorrow the Trade Map. It's an online platform providing Bahraini exporters with the trade and market intelligence of over 220 countries and territories and 5,300 products in a relevant and efficient manner. And also, we are also working on 9 different products. As Dane explained, we are being more aggressive, to be honest, and launching our offerings just to benefit the SME community in Bahrain. Like, for example, the accelerator program, the capacity building programs. We have great SMEs who are having great products. We will support their capability in production and supply chain, etc. But also, we will also change mindsets and help them in the digital marketing and reducing the fear in entering different markets and regions. As you noticed today, His Excellency the Minister, he he's focusing also on the objective of increasing the contribution of exporters in the GDP by 20%. This is all, to be honest, the roadmap for us. We are listening. We are located in the Bahrain Chamber of Commerce. You can follow us on Instagram, on the social media. Actually, translating all the challenges is the ultimate objective for us to come up with the right product that can support all SMEs in Bahrain.
So basically, you've taken all the studies done by Genome Bahrain and other studies done in Bahrain and reformatted, hopefully exporting in Bahrain. But can you just explain to the audience how does it work? I mean, does it come under which setup? Is it Tamkeen? Is it a number of organizations? And how can people approach Export Bahrain?
Actually, Export Bahrain is founded, as I mentioned, by the Small and Medium-Sized Development Board, supported by all entities I mentioned, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, EDB, BDB, and Tamkeen. Actually, it's a national center working with all stakeholders, being the exporters themselves. We segmented the customers into like pre-exporters, high potential exporters, or the exporters who can scale up their products or entering new markets with the new product. We are structured in a way where we have like, of course, the customer service until we face, let's say, the operational aspects of an offering or a product. We're working with the customs, we're working with all partners, even we're partnering with BCCI, Bahrain Chamber of Commerce. To be honest, we're a focal point. We're getting all the support. We're trying to be a coordinator, receiving, let's say, an SME who got a complaint about a certain product that they're trying to export, facing maybe a difficulty with the procedures on the border, or also trying to translate and let's say, being more strategic in our offerings, translating all the challenges that the Bahraini SMEs are currently facing.
So the good news for today is all the challenges facing us as entrepreneurs is being cut down on the long term. And today we have two interesting case studies on the panel, on the stage with us. Sheikh Rashid Khalifa, coming from the agriculture and food sector, Peninsula Farms. They have a very interesting story. But I'm just going to, this time, have the ladies first and hear the story from Lum Al-Jushi, Ilium Composites. And very interesting having a woman representing a very interesting sector in the industrial and manufacturing sector, and she has a story to share. We wanted to know more about your experience in exporting, and where do you think we can take you further, whether through what's available in Bahrain or through our international partners?
Thank you, Hala. Ilium was founded in 2010. It's a 6,000 square meter manufacturing facility. We make fiberglass reinforcements. And we sell all over the world to fiberglass manufacturers who would make things like boats or vehicles, train parts from these materials. At first, it was a struggle to develop a quality product, but we have been able to sell successfully all over the world, because I think that the most important thing is that our line is a state-of-the-art technology. And we've innovated in this composites industry, something that has not been done for 20 years. People have been using the same product for the past 20 years in the industry. So this was something new. And like Dane was explaining earlier, it solved people's problems. It solved a lot of problems they didn't know that there could be a solution to. And the reason that we continue to grow, we sell our standard products, we continue to grow, is because we're continuously innovating. It's a challenge to keep the day-to-day business running, keep the quality up, and yet keep innovating. What's next? We listen to our customers all over the world. We figure out what it is that they need, and then we go figure out how we're going to make it happen. Our production last year, we exported 835 tons. This year, we expect to double it. So we're talking about 10 containers a month going out from Ilium currently. I think that the reason that we were able to enter this very tightly controlled market, and our largest sales are in the US, is because of our innovation. And because of our emphasis on quality. If you are not going to keep your quality consistent, you will lose those customers so fast. And the other thing is that you also have the added challenge of being cost competitive. And there are some wonderful things in Bahrain that have helped us out. The reason that we have been able to be so successful in the US is because of the free trade agreement. And that has helped us out tremendously. Our infrastructure is good. Our access to logistics is really good in Bahrain. But perhaps the biggest stumbling blocks to us to continue to be able to grow as fast as we would like to grow is that we would like some export insurance. We have customers all over the world. If a customer defaults in payment, it's really difficult to chase them up all over the world. This could affect cash flow. This could be something that could be considered in the future. We'd like some finance for innovation. We run the day-to-day, we keep going, but we would like some support for continuing to come up with something new that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. It's just small support, but could bring huge rewards. It's really putting Bahrain on the map in terms of the composites industry. And then maybe we could take advantage of our diplomatic corps. Maybe they could leverage some exposure for Bahrain, for the industry, for manufacturers generally in Bahrain. Perhaps we could create concentrations, clusters of concentration, so clusters of manufacturing, fiberglass. Maybe Bahrain could concentrate on creating some clusters of concentration where efforts are going, because that would receive the best exposure as a group. So,
yeah. How many years have you been running as a business?
We have been running since 2011, so it's 8 years now.
8 years. So you've actually been running at a relatively challenging time for the economy.
Definitely.
And you've done so well. So moving forward from here, do you think Export Bahrain would be able to provide something like this, or can international organizations like ITC facilitate these sort of ideas? I'll leave that to the end to hear from both of you. But I think it's quite interesting. It's a quite interesting case study when it comes to composites. Sheikh Rashid, I mean, you have a totally opposite product. Fresh food, it has to do with the health, has to do with nutrition. How are you facing your export issues?
Yeah, I mean, it may be very different. You may not be able to eat anything you make. I can. But at the end of the day, we run through the same issues. To start, when we started our operation, it was to fill a need. It was to hit a certain standard of quality and to solve a problem. And when I first got the call to join this panel, it's interesting because originally my plans were not to export anything. I didn't want one head of lettuce to cross the border because my plan was to focus on strengthening the local food security sector and reduce the imports. But the interesting thing happens when you focus on quality and you produce a quality product. It rises in demand across borders, and you end up filling other people's needs as well. A little brief about the farm, just before I get into abstract thoughts and whatnot. We started in 2011, first harvest in 2012. We started producing vegetables, lettuce, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and then we moved on to dairy products, and then we moved on to a larger array of dairy products. Then we got creative and made soap, which was fun. And that's been actually very, now that's where I'm thinking more export, because there's a lot of opportunity with that. And now we're into the animals and meat sector, trying to increase the meat demands here in Bahrain. When I first started, I got all these certifications for the business. We got 3 different ISO certifications and 1 HACCP certification. I didn't get them because of any rules and regulations for export or for selling. I thought I'd get them because I kind of just wanted to better understand my management team, and to make sure that they know exactly what they're doing and have that sort of structure. Today, actually 2 days ago, I got the news that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has enforced regulations that HACCP must be implemented. So something like this is exactly why Export Bahrain has been created. Export Bahrain is something that everyone who has a business, whether they started for Bahrain and want to grow or already are exporting, need to help them grow. They are new, they are young, and nothing is wrong with constructive criticism is not a bad thing. We're very sensitive, guys. Don't be very sensitive, right? If someone says, "Oh man, you didn't do a great job," we turn our phone off and go home. Nothing is wrong with saying, we had an issue. It was a little problematic connecting all the different ministries and all the different organizations in Bahrain to achieve a goal. But that's what Export Bahrain is here for. And we are starting to utilize their services, going in there and in a way helping them understand our issues. So today we got orders from Saudi Arabia, from Kuwait. I still resist. I'm very stubborn. I still try to sell everything here. I still try to hold on to my initial goal of all these food products are for our country. But when the demand is there, the demand is there, and that's good. So, if anything, you have to start with a high quality product and fill the need and fill the gap and find the issue. And when you solve it for yourself, you might find out others have that issue too.
Is the resistance because of challenges that you're facing?
In terms of exporting, or
Yes.
in terms? There were some challenges. I mean, some stories, and then again, don't mean this in any, no one take this lightly, but it was new. It was new. Bahrain has always depended on food coming in. It was not a lot of fresh food and products were exiting the country. So initially when we were taking fresh vegetables over the bridge, it was taking over 2 days to cross the bridge. And for a fresh product to be taken out of its container, placed on the tarmac and, checked on in the hot sun, it's very difficult. So there were challenges connecting the authorities involved to get something to cross fast. But we've gotten a lot better through our understanding of the process. And today, when we have an organization such as Export Bahrain, we can get even better at getting things across. Now, I'm talking fresh products, and I'm talking vegetables. Milk is harder. Soap is easier. So there's, for me, I have a nice little 3-category understanding of how do we get it across and how do we get it there at the best quality, because no one is going to listen. If your product isn't at the best quality, no one's going to be like, oh, it was a customs problem. Oh, that's all right. I'll order again. Yeah. No one's going to say, they're going to say it's your problem. Your product wasn't good. And I can say, no, it was. Here's a picture. No, I don't care. When I got it, it was terrible. So no one is going to take care of your product as much as you are. So you have to make sure to go to every organization that's involved in the chain and get them to get it right so that your product looks good at the end.
So for the benefit of the international visitors and audience, initially Peninsula Farms started with hydroponic-based agriculture.
I get ahead of myself. Yeah.
So,
hydroponics.
So what you've done is you scaled up locally by diversifying the products.
Diversifying the products hydroponically, and also now starting a little bit of conventional agriculture. You need a lot more land for conventional agriculture and a lot more water usage for conventional agriculture. But the other day, it's been 8 years seven or 8 years. We're located not far from the Tree of Life. So all the people that are from Bahrain, you know where that is, out of Bahrain to Bahrainis, very far away. So just understand it that way. And when we first started, we had ideas. We wanted to plant different trees, long-term projects and things like that. I didn't believe that our area had the ability to keep a tree alive because we were just in the middle of nowhere. But the other day I was walking and I saw a butterfly next to me, and I thought to myself, we've actually successfully changed the ecosystem in a small plot of land that now I can have conventional agriculture in the middle of the desert, which is something that I'm proud that we've reached that goal.
So, Ashish, as you just heard, we have Peninsula Farms, we have Ilium Composites. We have some other interesting case studies like Nada. We have some telecom IT-based companies who work with either telecom products or also with digital products. How can, I know you have a couple of slides as well, but I will hit you with a few questions, which is, how can Export Bahrain and ITC work together to serve the various sectors? And how can they benefit from the international expertise or the different country programs? And where can you take us from here? I mean, Export Bahrain was recently relaunched with the purpose of minimizing all these challenges. Now, working together, how can you both do that? I'll start with Ashish and his slides as well. Yeah.
Can I go there?
Yes, of course, yes.
Sorry.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashish. I'm the Director of Country Programs at the International Trade Center in Geneva. I have the honor of being here today thanks to Export Bahrain, our partner. I just want to say we are working together, and I guarantee you Export Bahrain is going to become the most excellent export promotion organization in the MENA.
That's right.
Give us some time. I see the talent.
That's right. Clap it up for them. Yeah.
You have great staff, and I'm very sure, based on everything I've seen, that we can work together to make you an excellent organization. Second thing, the ITC, we are based in Geneva, and our main work is to essentially internationalize SMEs around the world. So the theme of today's panel is very, very relevant to us. And I thought maybe 2 quick words on internationalization. Then I will tell you the good news about Bahrain. And then I will tell you, for those aspiring entrepreneurs in this room, what does it take to internationalize successfully. So on internationalization, this is a bit of a buzzword, but essentially internationalization is something very simple. When you have a company which starts operating beyond its national borders, that is called internationalization. And that's not just only exports. Exports is a part of internationalization, but you can internationalize in many different ways. You can become part of a joint venture. You can give franchises of your company to others around the world. You can acquire, through investment, companies overseas. All this is part of internationalization. Now, as you have heard from both Luma and Rashid, I don't think I need to preach about internationalization here in Bahrain. This is actually already happening. However, guess what? I think the most important thing to retain here is, although Bahrain's exports are doing rather well, I don't know what the numbers are. I heard something about 10 billion US dollars in 2017. But who knows in this room what is the untapped export potential of Bahrain? We at ITC have done some analysis based on our analytical tools. The untapped export potential of Bahrain is $3.9 billion. And when you think about where this untapped potential lies, it's across the board. It's in fiberglass, it's in processed food, it's in aluminum alloys, it's in wooden furniture. There is huge potential in all of these different products. And of course, the United States is the largest untapped market. We have estimated that the untapped market for just for the United States alone is about $460 million. Now, Rashid, the good news for you, just in processed food alone, the untapped potential for food products exporting from Bahrain is $115 million. So you have a long way to go, and I can already see you're doing great work, and you will be able to enter and tap into that 115
Put a
million.
spotlight on me right here on stage, man. That's scary. That's a scary number we got to hit.
Absolutely.
But all right, I'm up for it. Okay.
Let's talk later. So now, what I wanted to do, we are in Bahrain, so I thought I would use the acronym of Bahrain to tell you about what does it actually take to be a successful exporter or internationalizer, if you want to call it. Now, what you see here looks fairly simple, but based on our experience, you need all those ingredients to be able to internationalize. So let's start with the B of Bahrain. Be ready. Now, this is very easy to say, but if you want to go outside of the Bahraini market, you have to be ready. You have to be prepared. You have to be ready to change. You have to be ready to adapt. You have to be ready to innovate, as Luma has said. You have to be ready to learn. You have to be ready also to fail and to fall. But of course, you also have to be ready then to succeed, which is why you are finally internationalizing. But you have to be prepared. You can't go into this blindly. Second, A, access resources. You are absolutely privileged in Bahrain to have huge access to resources. Financial resources, information resources, resources based related to skills, you can acquire skills, and technological resources. All these resources in Bahrain are critical, provided by Export Bahrain, but provided by many others. Use the resources, because if you want to internationalize, you will need to be able to access the resources which are currently available. The H is for have a strategy. Now, I know strategy is a bit of a buzzword. It's a very misunderstood word. You don't need a strategy by KPMG. What you need is to understand that if you want to internationalize, where do you want to go? What are the resources you have currently available? And what can you do with those resources? And what can you do with those competencies which you currently have? That, in very simple terms, is your strategy. Let me give you a very concrete example. Rashid, I'm looking at you. There is potential for fish fillets, export of fish fillets to France, to Portugal, to Spain, and to the US. Now, as part of your strategy, you have to think, is it the US market or is it the EU market? If it is the EU market, do you work only perhaps with a distributor in France and then have that distributor in France then distribute to Spain and to Portugal? You have to do your homework. You need to know about markets, you need to know about products, you need to know about your competitors, you need to know about prices, you need to know about logistics. All this is part of your strategy. You have to think about it. You don't need to write it down on a piece of paper, but you need to have a plan, and you need to know that the resources you currently have are finite. So have a strategy. R is for risk. Now, you cannot internationalize without having an appetite for risk. Internationalizing is risky. It is risky because you're working in very complex environments. You have a complex operations process. You are working in new territories, in new geographies. And you have the risk of non-payment, as Luma was saying earlier. But these are huge risks if you internationalize. So what you need to do is understand your risk, take calculated risks, and learn to mitigate your risk in the best way possible. And Export Bahrain can play a role in helping you to de-risk your environment and help you to mitigate some of those risks. A is for adapt. The domestic market is very, very comfortable. Everybody knows, you know your buyers, you know your consumers, you know your prices, you know everything about your domestic market. The moment you go outside of your national borders, you will need to adapt. You'll need to adapt your product based on the consumer preferences. You'll need to adapt your operations, your processes. You will need to adapt your strategies. You'll need to adapt your resources. Adaptation is an integral part of internationalization. Finally, I is for institutions. And a lot has been spoken about institutions here. You have a great, great ecosystem. Thank you, Dane, for bringing that to life. There's a huge ecosystem of institutions which are available here in Bahrain. Export Bahrain, the SME Development Board, you have Tamkeen, you have incubators, you have accelerators. So there is a fantastic ecosystem already helping the SMEs. What is key here is that the ecosystem needs to speak to each other, and each part of the ecosystem needs to provide support at the right level. You have startups, you have companies in the early stage, you have mature companies, and the level of support is very different. So the institutions need to understand what kind of support is needed at what point. When I talk about institutions, and I will say this very quickly, policy is very, very important. You have to have the right trade policies. The reason, Luma, you managed to enter the US market is because there's a trade policy. There's an FTA, as you said, between Bahrain and the US. And this FTA has allowed you to get duty-free entry into the US. So policies and FTAs are extremely important if you want to help SMEs to internationalize. And finally, the big N, never say I can't. If you see the companies which have internationalized and which have succeeded, these are companies who have had the vision, the courage to say, yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashish. I think you've sort of summed it up in just by using the word Bahrain. So I'm going to go back to my question. Export Bahrain and ITC will be able to work together, especially on the part of strategy. Because I think one thing that we're always looking at, I mean, I'm a tech startup. So one thing I'm always trying to search, where are my opportunities for technology, for digital-based? So is that something, if I come and knock on the doors of Export Bahrain, with your support, will you be able to guide us? I mean, we don't expect you to do our homework, but will you be able to guide us, similar to some of the tips you just gave Sheikh Rashid? Ashish or Hamad?
I'd like to comment on that, to be honest. I think we are positioned in Bahrain to service the region. We have great young entrepreneurs, Bahraini entrepreneurs, who are striving to come up with the right service, satisfying all the gaps and needs of the region. And through, let's say, connecting to the platforms, like for example, maybe with a few touches pertaining to franchising or marketing or branding, they can penetrate and enter a totally new market for them. And it will be an opportunity for them to grow. We're not just also thinking to support the, let's say, the startups or the SMEs. We tapped potential to support even the family, the productive families through our association with the social works directorate, and also having utilization of well-known platforms like Etsy, eBay, etc. It's a matter of know-how and competency for them to enter and sell internationally. We're having the right product with the high standard and high quality. We're just trying to increase the awareness and making Bahrain Export the partner, the true business partner for success. So as you mentioned, Hala, I think there is also an untapped market, which is the service sector, that can grow exponentially in the region and maybe globally.
We'd like to open the chance for the audience if they have any questions or any queries. Can we get a mic?
Hi, question for Dane. The slide you had about the trigger events. I'm Bahraini and I live in the UK, and it was I always compare Bahrain population size with Estonia. So it's interesting to me. I see a lot of Estonian entrepreneurs who are funded by people who used to work at Skype. That was a trigger event for the Estonian economy. How do you accelerate? And so after Skype, everything is easier in Estonia. How do you accelerate getting to a Skype if you haven't had that in a population the size of Bahrain?
Do you want me to answer it, or do you want to take? Yeah. Thank you. So, Estonia is a good example because part of the point is that those large successes, big exits, large scale-ups, can happen anywhere. They are independent of the person population size. They are much more related to the size, the health, the dynamism of the startup ecosystem. Estonia has a very dynamic startup ecosystem. Despite having a small population size, it was helped by Skype, it's helped by the government, very accommodating policies, especially around digitization. So what we've seen, part of the way to help encourage or generate more of those large companies is through the global connectedness, which is going to help lead to global market reach. And then the key is then to not prevent the recycling of those resources from the big success into the ecosystem. In Estonia, they were recycled back in. In some places, there are barriers or obstacles to that entrepreneurial resource recycling. So especially the global route we've talked about today helps generate those companies that grow their revenues twice as fast, those startups, and then you have to match it with, on the back end, not preventing that recycling.
Okay, and we have a question from the back. Can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. My name is Edwin Zulu from Zambia, Africa. The last 2 days listening from the presentation, what I see is that Bahrain should not close itself, should actually be looking at itself as the business, trade, and investment hub for the sub-region. And having said that, I would like also to look at Africa. It's the third largest population in the world and market, but also best partner for you. I just want you to be looking in that direction. There are certain things we should be able to talk on a one-to-one that I'm already thinking and so forth. So I think there is a lot of potential. Before I came here, I looked at your positioning. You're very strategic. But also, I'm happy that you have taken yourself in a direction that Singapore has made itself. Some of these principles that you're using, those are the principles that Singapore did. So I think you're in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mohammed, do you want to comment anything? We have 2 more questions, 3 questions. Yeah. I think what we'll do is we'll take all the questions together.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. My name is Jamila Lodge. I'm from Bermuda. We are a small island, and we do have entrepreneurs interested in scaling their businesses outside of Bermuda. But the challenge for us is that the cost to import raw materials can be prohibitive. So I'm asking, do you have that cost, or is there some kind of way that you can defer that cost? And then the other issue that we have is the cost now to get the finished product out of Bermuda. The shipping cost is prohibitive. So in an example, we have an entrepreneur who produces homemade soaps without all the chemicals. To get it out, she's going to have to charge $200 US dollars for a soap in order for it to be profitable. So how do you address that, or is it an issue in Bahrain?
Okay, if we'll give the mic to the next person. I think this question, if we can get Ashish and maybe Sheikh Rashid can talk about their experience. Dane, do you think you can give any input?
Yeah, Ahmed Al-Baharna, International Agencies Company. My question is to Dave. In the region, we still lack a proper IPO market for the startups and the scale-ups. The most successful startups have been acquired, whether it's Souk by Amazon, or Kareem by Uber, or Talabat by Rocket Internet. So, what can we do here as a region to have a proper IPO system so that we have successful startups that are listed rather than acquired?
Okay. And one more question from the back.
Hi, my name is Iman Al-Ansari, Bahraini entrepreneur. What is important for me as an entrepreneur is the database. We still in Bahrain, we don't have the proper database, and any platform can give us the information. For example, if I want to export, how can I know that my product is the only one that I'm exporting to other countries and stuff? So So just to upgrade it, update it, or just make sure if anything I can do better, so I can grow my business. So this is very important. My question: when we will start to having a platform or an app, or and connecting all the ministries, because this is important. We don't have the information how many tailors, for example, in Bahrain. So how many restaurants, and these are very important. Okay, thank you.
So Iman, what's your product?
I have a franchise. I'm a franchise partner in supplements.
Okay.
Supplements.
Can you further explain so that they can help you? Can you just explain further?
This is a basic for entrepreneurs, because I know a lot of Bahraini entrepreneurs, they are lacking of information. The database is not there. This is my question. And it's helping me because my branch is not in Bahrain, actually it's in Kuwait. I want to open in Bahrain, but I'm lacking of the database that I can do the strategy and do a lot of studies. I have to analyze what Bahrain need. So if I want to know what Bahrain needs, so I can open the proper branch here, I'm lacking of the database. Okay. Thank you.
Can we start with Dane, if you can respond to some of the queries?
Sure. On the exit question, so obviously IPO is one option, acquisition is another, or you can just stay, independent and private. The IPO question is a tough one because we're seeing a lot of changes in the IPO market globally. Despite some high-profile IPOs in the U.S. lately, the number of listed companies and the number of IPOs in the U.S. is way, way down. I mean, like 2,000 fewer publicly listed companies in the last 20 years in the U.S. because of the high cost of going public, the high cost of staying public, cost not just financial cost, but cost of just like attention and pressure. So, the question would be, if you're trying to increase IPO liquidity, like what are the barriers to it now? Is there, not the right exchange, or the costs high? What are the costs of doing it? Acquisitions can be good and bad. Some cases an acquisition helps drive the ecosystem because people leave, they start new companies, the acquiring company invests money. In some cases, and there are some very large cities that have had this experience where acquisitions just, they take them right out and it leaves nothing for the ecosystem. So, we don't have time to get into it right now, but there are public and private mechanisms to help ensure that investment stays there, remains there, the company stays there, the employees can connect, things like that, because it can go both ways. And the Bermuda question, I don't have much to offer there. I mean, the question would be, why are the shipping costs so high, and to identify those, because global shipping costs are like at rock bottom. So what is it that's keeping shipping costs? Is it export and import tariffs? Is it trade policies? What is it? And identify those. I have no idea in Bermuda's case.
I have an understanding. You guys are our alphabetical neighbor, and you guys face the same situation that I understand very well. There's two things we can do. One is it's an economy of scales. I have to order a lot of things, a big quantity of an item, so that I don't have to pay the shipping cost of a small amount of it. So that's not always a solution, but that's just what I have to do. So I've been doing it. So that's one. Two, looking for instead of being able to take like an e-commerce method where someone orders and I can just send them the soap, I have to go the distributor method where I could link up with somebody, send them a big quantity of products, and then have them be the outlet in that area. So that's the second way I attempted to do it. Now in Bahrain, the thing that's changing recently is the development of Export Bahrain and understanding some of the issues that we face. Today, the agreement with Gulf Air helps that. And what you just said of importing, now I know they're called Export Bahrain, but maybe they could help come up with a solution for, pooling up the people that need to import something from the United States, sharing a container and getting it over. Maybe there's another organization that can do that, but Bahrain has always been quick to find a solution for the entrepreneurs here. Well, I don't want to say quick to find it, but when they find it, they get it right. So we're in the area now of finding the solutions. But economy of scales is what I had to do. So that's just I thought about your question, and that's my answer.
Just to add to what Sheikh Rashid said, also enhancing the competencies of sourcing the material is one of the solutions that we're also planning to offer very soon under Export Bahrain. I'm talking about procurement, how we become efficient in sourcing the raw material, etc. So besides what we heard from Sheikh Rashid, also working on the competencies, which will be greatly important for the SME community in Bahrain.
Okay, Ashish, your input?
So I would like to respond to, I think, two questions. So the bit on importing costs, etc., and the shipping costs, I think that's a very important question. There are many small island economies like yours who face the same problem. Frankly, there are only two ways of overcoming this, in my view. What we see increasingly is for small island economies to be competitive, either they need to pool and become a regional power, as Sheikh Rashid was just saying. Second option would be go niche. I'll give you a simple story, but which is very impactful. Bhutan, a landlocked country, completely remote, has absolutely no hope in hell of being able to sell any normal product. But guess what? Since we mentioned soap, today, through a project of ours, we have been able to get Bhutan to manufacture a very niche kind of soap from a herb which is grown only in Bhutan, and that soap has been branded as the soap from Happy Bhutan. As many of you know, Bhutan is a happy country. It has the Gross National Happiness Index. So we have branded it as Happy Soap. And this soap, just by the right kind of branding, has become highly value added and is selling in Europe at very high prices, at premium prices. So these are the two things I wanted to say. I just also want to say on the issue of the database, so please do attend the event which is being jointly organized tomorrow by Export Bahrain and ITC, where they will be launching the new platform of Export Bahrain, where in fact ITC's trade analysis tools have all been embedded in the Export Bahrain website, and you will see a lot of information there on the trade map about markets, about products, about competitors, about prices. All the kind of information you're actually looking for should be available through Export Bahrain, and you will be able to see this in the session tomorrow. And one final word, this was not really a question, but I was very taken by two words of Luma and Sheikh Rashid, innovation and quality. And I just want to say, if you want to internationalize successfully, there is absolutely no substitute for having the best quality and being ahead of the rest and being innovative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Luma, final words, input, insight?
Anything?
An insight onto, for example, the ladies' experience or your final message for the session?
I mean, it's different because our product was created to be exported. There is a very tiny market for fiberglass in Bahrain, so it's different than trying to, we needed to understand that there were no barriers to exporting. But I think it's very interesting, the IPO question I thought was very interesting because that is generally a target for companies like ours, position ourselves to be taken over by somebody bigger one day until, maybe. So that got me thinking about why. Why is that generally a target? And maybe that's something we could discuss further with Export Bahrain about how do you retain companies like ours and ownership of countries like ours in Bahrain.
So, yeah, thank you, Hannah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for our amazing panelists. To end the session on a happy note, other than my next destination will be Happy Bhutan, but we should do that. But there's an announcement on the session hall number 5. There is a special GEC quiz and valuable prizes, I guess. So if you, after this heavy session And after this long sessions, the plenary session, work sessions, please join us for some fun next door, and it's ongoing for the rest of the day. Thank you for the panelists, and please, they're here for the next hour or so, so please feel free to share with them your experience, or if you have any more questions. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hala.